The Life, Teaching, and Legacy of Martin Luther, Chapter 4, Background to the 95 Theses. It is likely that very few people would know the name Martin Luther today if Luther had not begun teaching against indulgences. Martin Luther became internationally famous due to the debate that was started when he argued against indulgences. Therefore, in order to understand the ministry of Martin Luther, it is extremely important to understand indulgences along with the Roman Catholic teachings connected to the sale of them and Luther's protest against those sales. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, an indulgence is a remission of the temporal punishment due to sin, the guilt of which has been forgiven. People believed that by earning or buying an indulgence from the Roman Catholic Church, or by having someone else earn or buy it on their behalf, they could be declared not guilty for some or all of their sins, depending on what type of indulgence was earned or bought. This was seen as a way to lessen the time spent in purgatory. In 1323, Pope Clement VI had issued official teaching concerning the treasury of merits. The idea of indulgences was based on this teaching. Clement VI taught that Christ's life and the lives of saints provided an overflow of merits, merit meaning a reward for a good work. These merits by the saints that go beyond their own needs are known as supererogation. The New Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia says concerning supererogation, the sum total of the merits of Christ was greater than was required for the salvation of man, and that the saints also had done more and suffered more than was absolutely required to ensure their own salvation, that these superabundant merits were placed in the spiritual treasury of the Church, and the disposal of its visible head, that is, the Pope, that as the Church is one, in this world and the next, they may be applied to such of its members as are still lacking in the required amount of works necessary to satisfy the divine demands. One way to access this treasury of merits, according to the Catholic Church of Luther's day, was through indulgences granted in connection with gazing upon the relics of the saints. Frederick the Wise, who ruled the section of Germany in which Luther lived, and who founded the University of Wittenberg where Luther taught, had gathered a huge collection of relics. This collection was opened to the public on All Saints' Day. By seeing Frederick's relics after paying a fee, people thought they could reduce their time in purgatory by thousands of years. Another way to access the treasury of merits was through other indulgences which were issued in order to help people meet the requirements of satisfaction, works that showed repentance. These indulgences were supposed to free Christians from the guilt of daily sins as well as time in purgatory when normal means could not be used. Roland Bainton notes, "At first indulgences were conferred on those who sacrificed or risked their lives in fighting against the infidel, that is, the Muslim people, and then were extended to those who, unable to go to the Holy Land as crusaders, made contributions to the enterprise. The device proved so lucrative, that is, the selling of indulgences made so much money, that it was speedily extended to cover the construction of churches, monasteries, and hospitals." While Luther was a professor in Wittenberg, Pope Leo X gave authority for a special indulgence in order to fund another bishopric for Albert of Mainz. According to church rules at the time, a person could only become bishop over one area. The area over which a person is bishop is known as a bishopric. Somehow Albert of Mainz had gotten around the rules and had obtained 2 bishoprics already, thus receiving double the offering money from the churches under his care. When he asked Leo X for a 3rd bishopric, Leo X granted his request, provided that Albert pay him a large fee. In order to secure this fee, Albert had to borrow money from Jacob Fugger, who was one of the wealthiest individuals of all time. So that he could repay Jacob Fugger, Albert asked Leo X to authorize a special indulgence that could be sold in his bishoprics. The money from sales of this special indulgence would be divided in two. Part of the money would go to Albert, so that he could repay Jacob Fugger. The other part of the money would go to Pope Leo X, so that he could fund renovations to St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The special indulgence was said to offer 4 benefits for Christians who purchased it. 1. The plenary remission of sins, that is, the punishment for all the purchaser's sins would be turned back. This was usually taken to mean that anyone who bought this indulgence for his or her own sake would not have to spend time in purgatory. 2. A confessional letter allowing the penitent to choose his confessor. That is, if a person did not want to confess his sins to his or her own priest, buying this indulgence would allow for the purchaser to choose another priest. 3. A share for one and one's family in all alms, fasts, prayers, and pilgrimages of every sort. That is, part of the merit earned by others performing spiritual deeds would be placed on the heavenly account of those who bought this indulgence. 4. The total remission of all sins for souls in purgatory. That is, if a person bought this indulgence on behalf of a deceased Christian, that Christian was thought to be immediately released from purgatory into heaven. Johann Tetzel, a priest of the Dominican order, was the most infamous indulgence salesman. Indulgence preachers would often set up a replica of the papal seal, the symbol of the Pope, to indicate that they were under the Pope's authority. Tetzel would set up this seal in the town square wherever he went and cry out to the people gathered there. In order to get people to purchase indulgences, he would use unscrupulous tactics. One such tactic involved calling to mind the deceased family members of his hearers. He would claim that the deceased family members were writhing in agony in the fires of purgatory, while the living family members held the money that could set them free. The following are quotes from Tetzel. "Listen to the voices of your dear dead relatives and friends, beseeching you and saying, 'Pity us! Pity us! We are in dire torment, from which you can redeem us for a pittance. Do you not wish to? Open your ears. Hear the father saying to his son, the mother to her daughter, we bore you, nourished you, brought you up, left you our fortunes, and you are so cruel and hard that now you are not willing for so little to set us free. Will you let us lie here in flames? Will you delay our promised glory? Remember that you are able to release them, for as soon as the coin in the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs. Will you not then, for a quarter of a florin, receive these letters of indulgence, through which you are able to lead a divine and immortal soul into the fatherland of paradise? You priest, you nobleman, you merchant, you woman, you virgin, you married woman, you youth, you old man, go into your church, which, as I have said, is St. Peter's, and visit the hallowed cross that has been put up for you, that incessantly calls you. You should know, whoever has confessed and is contrite and puts alms into the box, as his confessor counsels him, will have all of his sins forgiven, and even after confession and after the Jubilee year, will acquire an indulgence on every day that he visits the cross and the altars, as if he were visiting the 7 altars in the Church of St. Peter, where the perfect indulgence is granted. Reports of Tetzel's extravagant statements prompted Luther to begin arguing against the way that indulgences were being sold.